Hey everybody, welcome back. We are going deep
Oh,
today
yeah.
into wealth inequality in America.
Right.
And we're going to be looking at a speech by Bernie Sanders
Yeah.
from late 2024.
Okay.
And he really lays out
Yeah,
a pretty stark picture of where we're at.
for sure.
And the whole idea,
Mm.
he contrasts these two Americas.
Hmm.
He's talking about billionaires going to space for fun and then millions of Americans
Right.
struggling for basic necessities.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful image that he brings up, right? And I love how he doesn't just sort of like throw out statistics.
Right.
He really brings it down to a level that
Yeah.
feels very real and tangible.
Yeah. And I mean, like when he talks about like billionaires spending $500 million on yachts and $270 million on mansions.
Yeah.
And you think about like families struggling to put food on the table, it's
Absolutely.
pretty jarring.
Yeah, and he drops that statistic, 3 individuals, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, have more wealth than the entire bottom half of the U.S. population.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It's pretty stunning.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it makes you think, okay, so it's one thing to be super wealthy,
Right.
but what does that translate into?
Yeah, it's about the control, right?
Yeah.
That comes with that wealth.
Right.
And Sanders is arguing, this isn't just about luxury items anymore. It's about
Right.
owning the systems
The whole system.
that drive our lives. And, one example that he points to is the role of these massive Wall Street firms,
Yeah.
like BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street.
Oh, yeah.
And these 3 companies, they control assets worth over $22 trillion.
22 trillion.
$22 trillion.
Oh, that's more than some countries.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's
combined.
larger than the GDP of many countries combined.
Wow.
So, it's hard to even fathom that amount of money. But what does it actually mean for us?
Right. Like, what does that mean for, like, us regular people?
Well, these firms,
Yeah.
they're major shareholders
Right.
in a staggering 95% of S&P 500 companies.
So they have a say in almost every
Almost every major corporation
corporation in America.
in America, and that means they influence what gets produced, how much we pay for goods and services, even job creation.
So these are decisions that impact all of our lives,
Exactly.
but they're being made by
A tiny handful
a
of
tiny handful of people.
individuals representing these mega firms.
So really, it sounds like what Sanders is saying is this extreme wealth is warping the playing field, not just in terms of economics, but
Yeah,
also in the political arena.
absolutely. And that's where he takes his argument next.
Yeah.
And he's not mincing words. He comes right out and says, the uber rich are actively buying our government.
Wow.
And in his words, undermining American democracy.
So how are they doing that?
He points to campaign finance
Okay.
as a major culprit, specifically the Citizens United Supreme Court decision.
And for people who don't know what that is?
Yeah, so basically this ruling really opened the floodgates
Okay.
for unlimited political spending by corporations and billionaires.
So basically, if you have billions, you have a much bigger voice in our political system
That's right.
than just like the average person.
That's exactly Sanders' argument.
Wow.
And he highlights the fact that in the 2024 election,
Okay.
just 150 billionaires spent almost $2 billion
Wow.
to try and influence the outcome.
Wow, so 150 people.
150 people,
$2 billion.
accounting for 18% of total campaign spending.
Wow.
So he's saying this tiny, ultra-wealthy fraction of the population is wielding a disproportionate amount of influence over our elected officials and shaping the policies that affect all of us.
This is not a very democratic system then, is it?
Well, that's the question he's posing, right?
Yeah.
Is this the kind of democracy we want?
Right.
Where a handful of billionaires have this outsized influence.
It's kind of scary to think about,
Yeah.
that just a small group of billionaires can really impact our elections.
Yeah.
Like that.
And the policies that shape our lives.
Yeah. So is Sanders saying that we're basically headed towards a system where the super rich just call all shots?
Well, he definitely suggests that we're getting dangerously close to what's called an oligarchy,
Oligarchy.
where a really small elite group
Sure.
holds most of the power and wealth
Yeah.
and uses it to basically manipulate the system to their advantage.
So not really a government by the people for the people.
It's a far cry from that ideal.
Yeah. That's kind of a bleak picture.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, like, what can we even do about it? It just feels so massive.
It feels very overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
But Sanders doesn't really offer a quick fix,
Right.
but he does issue a pretty powerful call to action.
Go.
He argues that we need to fight
Okay.
for a government and an economy that works for all of us.
Mm.
not just the wealthy few.
So we can't just like sit back and hope things change on their own.
He's really emphasizing the urgency of the situation.
I got to get involved.
We have to stand up and demand change,
Right.
or we risk, sliding further
Yeah.
into this system where the needs and voices of everyday Americans are completely drowned out.
By the billionaire dollars.
Yeah.
It's like we're at a crossroads.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Do we want to live in a society where a handful of people control everything?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we want a society where everyone has a fair shot?
That's the choice that Sanders is putting before us.
Yeah.
And he's reminding us that this isn't just some abstract political debate.
Right.
It's about the kind of future we want to build.
For our kids.
For ourselves, our children, future generations.
Yeah.
Do we want a future where wealth and opportunity are concentrated at the very top?
Yeah.
Or do we want a future where everyone has the chance to thrive?
It's deeper than just politics. It's more like a moral...
It's a moral question.
Yeah.
He's reminding us that behind all the statistics, all the talk of wealth and power, these are real people's lives that are deeply affected by these issues.
And he does a good job of like making it real.
He really humanizes the issue.
Yeah.
He connects these big concepts to these day-to-day struggles that people are facing.
Like you're one medical emergency away from being...
Absolutely. He talks about the millions of Americans who are struggling to make ends meet, worried about the future their children will inherit.
So it's not just numbers, it's about...
It's about people.
Real people.
Yeah, it's about their hopes, their dreams, their anxieties. Yeah. And he's calling on us to recognize our shared humanity, to see that we're all in this together.
Okay.
And to work collectively.
To make things better.
To create a more just and equitable society.
I get it, but I'm still wondering, what can we actually do about it?
Right.
How do we translate this urgency?
Yeah.
And like this moral imperative.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
Into like real action.
And that's what we're going to explore in the final part of our deep dive.
So we've talked about, these two contrasting Americas and the extreme concentration of wealth and power and how the super rich are influencing our government.
Right.
And Sanders ends his speech with this rousing call to action.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of wrestling with that question of like, what can we as individuals actually do to create a more equitable society?
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this, right? Like, how could one person possibly make a dent in a system that seems so rigged in favor of the super rich?
Yeah.
But change always starts at the grassroots level. So individual actions multiplied across communities can create a powerful ripple effect.
Okay, so where do we even begin?
Well, I think awareness is key.
Okay.
Educating ourselves and others about the roots and the consequences of inequality.
So knowledge is power.
Exactly. The more people understand how these systems work, the more likely they are to demand change.
Okay, so how do we translate that knowledge into action?
Well, there's a lot of different avenues.
Okay.
We can support organizations that are fighting for economic justice.
Okay.
We can advocate for policies that promote equality.
Okay.
Hold our elected officials accountable.
Okay.
Even small actions. Like contacting your representatives or volunteering for a cause you believe in can contribute to a larger movement.
So get involved locally, reach out to our representative support groups working on these issues.
Absolutely.
Okay, is there anything else we can do like on a more personal level?
Sure.
Yeah.
Think about your everyday choices as a consumer.
Okay.
Supporting businesses that treat their workers fairly, investing in ethical companies, being mindful of your consumption habits.
So like where you spend your money.
Exactly. Every dollar you spend is like casting a vote for the kind of world you want to live in.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel powerless.
Right.
But our individual choices can really make a difference.
They absolutely can.
We have more power than we think.
Yeah. And don't underestimate the power of conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Engaging with people who hold different viewpoints.
It's tough, though, isn't it?
It can be challenging.
Yeah.
But real lasting change rarely happens in echo chambers.
Okay.
So be willing to listen, engage in respectful dialogue.
Yeah.
Find common ground.
It's about building bridges.
You might be surprised by the connections you make.
Yeah.
And the perspectives you can gain.
That's a good point. It's easy to stay in our own little bubbles.
Yeah.
Especially online.
Right. Especially these days.
Yeah. But real progress requires us to get out of those bubbles.
Exactly.
And find common ground with people, even if we disagree.
I think it's about finding those shared values
Yeah.
and goals that can unite us in working toward a better future.
Yeah, because ultimately creating a more just and equitable society
Mm-hmm.
requires all of us.
It does.
Individuals, communities, organizations, governments.
Yeah.
Like, we all got to work together.
It's a collective effort
Yeah.
that requires us to recognize our interconnectedness.
It's inspiring to think that even small actions can lead to big changes
Absolutely.
when we all work together.
Yeah.
Sandra's speech is a good reminder that we all have a role to play in
Mhm.
shaping the future.
And it might not be easy,
It's not going to be easy.
but the stakes are too high to stay silent.
So what you're saying is we got to get out there and do something.
Yeah, I think that's the takeaway here.
All right, well, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought
Yeah,
and maybe inspired you to take action.
absolutely.
Remember, change starts with each and every one of us.
That's right.
Thanks for listening.